This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words.
Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 227 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm talking to Audrey Hughey all about author planning for 2024. On last week's episode with Cara Clare, Matthew Goodall said, "Great interview, got me thinking about how to write this genre and how to differentiate the characters." Thank you. I love that. I'm glad it was helpful. And yes, I think reverse harem is a really great genre to look at for that close-knit, sort of larger cast, but where you want characters that are different, and Cara is a master of that. So yes, thank you very much. In personal news and updates then this week, I'm not 100%, I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. I'm sort of doing this wobbly thing where 1 minute I'm absolutely fine in my voice and the next minute I'm sounding a bit croaky and hoarse. But nonetheless, the show must go on. So that is also, I would say, probably 100% self-induced. I've basically worked too long, too many hours and not rested to the point where my wife had a conversation with me this morning that was along the lines of, "It's all good and well that you're earning more money, but not if you kill yourself to do it." And I was like, right, yes, okay. So it's enforced rest this weekend. And it's the psychology of, I'm doing better financially, therefore I don't want that to stop, therefore work myself harder. And I get that is not the right psychology, at least I'm aware of it. And, so I'm working on it. I'm trying to recognise the fact that working harder does not mean working smarter. And I am trying to make sure that from next week, I'm a good girl. And I don't work too many evenings and I make sure that I take off the weekends. And essentially what happened is I was really desperate to get the book finished. And so I ended up working about 2 weeks straight without a day off. And I was then working into the evenings as well, because with bringing on Shopify, with sort of the boom from TikTok, it has created a lot more admin, a lot more customer service, and I just don't have the processes in place to handle that. So I have been handling it and I just need to outsource more of it, basically. Or alternatively, I need to put better systems in place. And the other thing that I've had to do is say no to a few things, which is really new for me. As you guys know, I'm really terrible at saying no. But this is kind of one of the lessons that I am taking out of this recent surge in sales and things, is that psychologically, because it feels like I'm winning, number one competition, doesn't want that to stop. But also I have created a system and a business that doesn't mean I have to work all of the time. And so I could just take the rest of today off and it would be okay, because the sales are still going to come in. I feel like I've learned so much in the last few weeks and I really can't wait to do my annual lessons learned episode. I think it's going to be super exciting. The other thing that I have learned is that I have such bad timing skills. So not only am I releasing a book next month in February the 28th, the new book comes out, the new book which is called House of Crimson Hearts, the first book in the Kingdom of Immortal Lovers, my new sapphic vampire romance series. Not only am I releasing that on February the 28th, I'm also running a webinar, my first webinar in February on the 9th and 10th. And I'm speaking at Pro Writing Aid's Romance Writers Week. And surprise all, I'm also running a Kickstarter. I feel like I'm completely fucking bonkers saying that. I'm so ridiculously excited for this Kickstarter, but I will say that it is small. Like, I'm just doing this one thing. I'm basically doing special edition, holographic foiling, like a bunch of stuff's going into the book to make it ridiculously beautiful. colour character arc. You guys know, if you've listened to this show for any period of time, that I have been coveting and lusting after not safe for work character arc that's like queer. So that was like my main driver for doing this, was getting some beautiful not safe for work character art and having that in the book. And so this is kind of my purpose for doing this. I'm like, I honestly crave having special books, like all the straight people get special books, you know, like they have all of these beautiful fantasy books, and oh gosh, I crave it, I covet it, and so that's why I'm producing this basically. I do appreciate that, you know, a lot of people who do their first Kickstarters have these huge run-ups. I'm not having a huge run-up because I'm scared mostly. So I have no expectations. I'm going to set a reasonably low target because basically chicken shit, and I'm afraid that I'm not going to hit it. But also because I appreciate that it's niche and it's not going to be for everybody. But also I'm fucking excited because I want the book. So also, yeah, that's also why I'm doing this, because I want the bloody book. So yeah. Anyway, I hope that by the time this episode airs, the Kickstarter pre-launch page will be live. I'm working on that today and tomorrow. So the pre-launch page should be up. And then, yes, so this is basically just a beginner first attempt at Kickstarter. And then I hope I might run a different one later in the year, of which I will not talk about right now. But yeah, oh my God. So this is probably why I'm sick, is basically my conclusion, because this Wally decided to schedule 17 million big projects all in 1 month. Who fucking does that? Who does that? This tit, that's who does that. Anyway. Okay, and speaking of all of those different activities and things that I am doing next month, I will leave links in the show notes to pre-order the House of Crimson Hearts. I believe it will also leave links to order from my Shopify, because I am going to be doing pre-orders on my Shopify as well. All the Shopify and Amazon and the other stores, because this book is going wide, all of those will be the standard editions. And if you want the special edition, then you will have to support the Kickstarter, basically. I don't know whether or not I will be able to do something with the special edition going forward, maybe, but that's like another thing that I need to learn about. So for now, it will be the Kickstarter or standard editions through normal digital stores and my Shopify. However, the Prose in the Market webinar is coming up. By the time this goes out, it will be the 31st of January. So you will only have, let's say, like another week, essentially, to join. So what is the Prose in the Market webinar? Well, writing to market isn't new, but when teachers talk about it, they tend to focus on understanding the market itself, advertising, brand, and pitch. But what about the writing and craft of writing to market? If you're tired of trying to work out how to deliver what readers want, then this is the workshop for you. In the session, I'm going to explain how to deconstruct best-selling books and implement the tools you find. So I'm going to be giving you the tools so that you can go away and do that deconstruction in your own genre yourself. I will provide an easy 3-step methodology for deconstruction, practical examples of deconstruction and implementation in your own work. So I'll be showing you the practicals. I will also show you why you're not using copywriting enough and where you might want to use it. I'll show you how to intentionally slip TikTokable and marketable scenes into your novels that will hook readers, and then examples of turning that into either a TikTok or an Instagram reel or an ad or whatever social post. I will show you how to convert that into something that will hook readers in your advertising. We'll go through examples of viral hooks that work on social media and why they work. We'll look at what's in those hooks and how you can create your own. We'll have a little bit of time on tropes and the craft of those and putting those into your novels. And then we'll look at some live examples as well. And best of all, There's a whole Q&A section where I will not sound this croaky and you will be able to talk to me and we can nerd out and you can ask whatever you want. And you'll get a workbook that will contain some exercises to help you when you go away after the session. And remember 2 things. There are limited places and this will not be for sale afterwards. So if you want to be able to watch the replay, you must have a ticket. And there are 3 different times in order to try and catch different people across different time zones. Okay, that is enough waffling from me. The Rebel of the Week this week is Joanne. Joanne says, I'm an introvert and usually shy away from conflict. I come from a large family, but this story is about me and my older sister, who is 3 years my senior. This means when I was around 11 or so, about the time this story happened, she was already morphing into that most annoying stage of humanity, a teenager. She was always bossier than me, and even when we had the same chore, had to be in charge. I don't remember exactly what she did to cause my rebellious act, but I'm sure she deserved it. Coming from a large family, we each had our favourite seat at the kitchen table. My sister's was in the back, and by the time she sat down, she was convinced she could not get out as she was pinned between the table and the cupboards behind her. So when she demanded me to get her more water, my mother told me to fetch it for her since I usually sat at the front and it was my chore to set the table. As I walked out from the sink to the from the sink to the kink? No. As I walked from the kitchen to the sink, I realised something unique about her order. My sister asked for water, and water she got. A whole mug of it right in the face. Well, it turns out that she could get out from behind the table and rather fast too. By the time I stopped running... My mother asked me why I had done something so out of character. She only asked for the water, not the glass. I said, needless to say, that my sister was exact in her wording of her requests from then on. Oh, I do love this. I do love sibling squabbles. I can't get a grip. Oh dear. I did try it out one more time though. When she asked for a glass of water on a hot summer's day, I filled it to the brim with hot water. Since she had asked for the glass, there was no throwing or running this time, and I was told to replace it with cold water as soon as it landed on the table, which I most likely did. My sister and I get along fine now, and no water has been flung into her face since then. Oh dear, I absolutely love this rebellion. There is nothing better than sibling squabbles. Like, I'm fascinated by siblings because I am my mother and father's only child, but my father has 2 more boys and a girl and a stepdaughter who he brought up from the age of 3, and the bottom 3 all live together, so they very much have like sibling. They very much feel like they were brought up as siblings, whereas I never lived with another sibling, so I very much feel like an only child, even though I have siblings. So I'm one of 5, and so I just find this sibling dynamic so interesting, and I like sort of the found family aspect of it, even though obviously that's like blood relative family. But anyway, I just find the psychology and dynamics of it very, very interesting. And I had a conversation with my wife recently because my wife is one of 3, all 3 girls, and she's the middle child. And I was asking her what the difference is between a sister and a best friend, and where that line sits, and what does it feel like? How does it feel differently? And yeah, so I just find it super, super interesting. And anyway, that is enough tangential random nonsense from me. God, you can tell I'm sick. I'm not very... I'm waffling on all different tangents. Anyway, Welcome and thank you to Camilla Vavruch. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I've butchered that. And a huge thank you to all of my existing patrons. I really, really appreciate you guys. I fucking love our community and our Slack group where there are over 100 authors all chatting and helping and supporting each other. We also have the movie night tonight where we're going to jump on Zoom and all watch a film together. We're watching the first episode of the new Disney Percy Jackson. So that's going to be fun. And I'm sure there'll be lots of popcorn thrown at the screen as we just like hang out together, basically. So come and join the community. And you can do that from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. This episode is sponsored by Kobo Writing Life, Kobo's free, fast and easy self-publishing platform. KWL was built by authors for authors, and their team of dedicated book lovers is always working hard to help you reach new readers around the world. One way to reach a new audience on Kobo is through their subscription reading service, Kobo Plus. This program has been a great success and is now available in Canada, Belgium, the Netherlands, Portugal, France, Italy, Australia and New Zealand. The great thing about Kobo Plus for authors is that it reaches an entirely new audience who may be trying digital reading for the first time. The Kobo Writing Life team know how important it is that authors retain control of their books, and as such, exclusivity isn't required. Do you want to try out a book in Kobo Plus Canada but not in the Netherlands? Well, you can do that. Simply select the areas you want to be included in the rights and distribution section of your book. If you're choosing to publish widely as an author, Kobo encourage you to make your books available to as many readers as possible with Kobo Plus. It's a great way to gain and build an audience. Don't want to opt your books in one by one? The KWL team can bulk opt your books in if you email them at writinglife@kobo.com. If you want to learn more about KWL and Kobo Plus, check out the Kobo Writing Life podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, and find them on social. Create your free account today at kobo.com/writinglife. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author podcast. Today I'm joined by Audrey Hughey. Audrey takes pride in creating planners that help authors organise their creative lives and chase their dreams. In her fiction work, she ventures into the realms of horror and thrillers, weaving stories filled with fear and suspense. As an active member of the writing community, she is always ready to lend a supportive hand or a word of encouragement to her fellow authors. When she's not writing or helping others, she enjoys spending time with her family, savouring the beauty of nature and bringing more light into the world. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Sasha. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's wonderful to have you. I always think it's so funny when like the nicest, softest, gentlest humans write horror. Right. Like you're such a positive, lovely, soft energy. Like when I met you in Vegas and I had no idea you write horror.
Yeah. It's funny. But I do like to write, people overcoming the big scary stuff. So. Yeah. It's funny. I've spoken to a couple of horror authors now, and I used to do a podcast with a chap who was a horror writer, and all of you are these like really positive, like shining kind of sunshine humans. Like it's such a strange dichotomy, but it's like all of you kind of also say that there's like a hope in horror, which I think is just a wonderful gift to give readers. But before we dive into like planning and organization and all of that good stuff, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about how you got to where you are today? Okay, so how did I get where I am today? I think that's a fun question to explore, and I think the answer to that evolves every time I talk about it, because, I get to have a little more reflection on it every time I'm preparing for something like this. And I remember I was talking to my mom about this the other day. She ran a 4-H club. She did a lot of volunteering. We had a horse farm. So she was a 4-H club leader, and she do riding lessons and train horses, and she always had these very extensive lists of things that needed to be done daily. So she was just paper planning, and she always had beautiful handwriting. So she'd have like everything super organized in the barn and clipboards hanging up for each horse or each student and exactly what needed to do during their next lesson or training session.
And I actually think my roots begin there, with watching my mom work in that way.
Have you ever had your mum Clifton Strengths tested?
No.
Oh, I'm dying to know. I'm like, oh, is it achievement? Is it discipline? Though. Is it like, what is it?
Yeah, that would be very interesting. That'd be very interesting. I'm going to have her do that now. Yeah. I just packaged her a nice planner. One of my model planners. I just packaged it up and sent it to her. So, but because she writes too. She's very creative. She's a beautiful artist, actually.
Oh, wow.
See this thing up here?
Yeah.
It's like different types of rocks and string and things. After she sketched it out, she used adhesive to put it all together in high school.
Oh,
so she created that in high school.
For listeners, I'm looking at a landscape picture of four different horses in all different texture and media, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, she's incredibly talented. I wish I could do the art part, but she also loves writing. And now I finally convinced her to give writing another shot again.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So my roots begin there. And I think that was honed by my nerdy nature, and which I really dug into in high school. Big nerd. I would play Tomb Raider with my friend, my bestie in high school. And we would actually play together on the computer. So one of us would have like the action buttons and the other would have the directional keys on the keyboard. And so it was, it was wild. Why did we do that?
I used to love Tomb Raider.
Yeah. And it was like Tomb Raider 1. So we decided to start doing like country studies in high school. And we had to go alphabetically because that's organized, right? So started with Afghanistan, which I was just, you're just appalled at what was going on even before 9/11. And so we split up the studies, and we would like brief each other at lunch. So it was super nerdy, and I love that. I think I was meant to be that kind of person, obviously. And then I joined the Army and did a lot of the same stuff And the Army really helped me hone the discipline, the showing up, even when you don't feel like it. You don't get to not be motivated. You know what I mean? Or you get in trouble. So, but it also helped because there's consistently reviews and goal setting. It's a cycle that never stops. You always have to be improving yourself. You have to find 3 things that you can do better, three things you can do to improve yourself. You have to set goals yearly and quarterly. Even as an enlisted person, they teach you how to chase things. They teach you how to, if you have a really good NCO, you get taught how to chase the next thing and always improve yourself. So the military was fundamental in bringing me to this point now where I get to basically, I love spreadsheets and planning and systems and some kind of structure.
And do you know your Clifton strengths?
I haven't done that in so long. I can't even remember.
No! Okay, afterwards you have to email me and let me know.
I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me add that to my
list.
At some point list.
Exactly, yeah.
Soon, someday.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to talk about planning, and I feel like I'm like an average planner, I would say. I get a lot of energy from planning. Like I love spreadsheets. What I love is tracking more than anything, but that's because I'm number one competition. So for me, data is everything because it tells me what my performance is. And I have like a annual calendar, and then I have like 2 whiteboards that I constantly change because I'm never quite finding the right way to plan for me. And part of me thinks I never will. And part of me thinks that it is just in my nature to constantly change, and I like new and different. What I'm great at is the big plan, and I'm really shit at then narrowing that down to what actually needs to happen today. But I'm going to ask you about that later. First of all, I'd love to know, like, how do you plan? Like, what is your system, and how have you got it working like so well for you?
I love this. So I spent a lot of time practicing and preparing for this because your questions are so good. I was like, I could talk forever on each of these questions. But for me specifically, I always have my planner on my desk. It's always on my desk. I actually have like a desk with a keyboard tray. And so a lot of times if I have stuff out on the other side of the L, I will put it on the keyboard tray. So it's right there and I can just slide it out. And but I set either Sunday night or Monday morning to do my planning every week, and it takes like 10 minutes. It does not take a long time. It does get me hyped up for the week to come, and it gives me a time to evaluate, okay, what went right and what could go better, from this past week. What could have gone better? So it depends. I stay super flexible. And I think one of the things that the Army instilled in me that has been the most useful thing has been the motto, adapt and overcome. So I try to stay highly flexible. And that's what I want to bring to the planning community, is the idea of flexibility. My youngest child is 2 years old. So I have to be highly flexible, and because she's a COVID boom baby, there's no classes, even if we could afford daycare, because it's just outrageous right now. You know what I mean? They're all full. The waiting lists are outrageous. There's no place for her to go in this area, so I don't really have that option of having daycare. So I have to stay flexible on my days and find ways to manage being mom and being, writer, planner, helper, and, all the other hats that we get to wear as parents and people in, these creative professions. So for me, I stay super flexible. I understand my priorities, my top 4 priorities: self, because we can't do anything if we're not taking care of ourselves; family, because it's more important for me to have a good relationship with my family than anything else. If that's all I leave behind, that would suck, but at the same time, that'd be better than leaving behind 100 published books and no family, or my family hates me. And then 3, my writing, because that's my identity and my life goals. And 4, income to pay for all the editing and covers. So I am a cover hoarder. But yeah, so once, I'm very clear on my priorities, and then I set my goals and tasks based on those priorities, and I prioritize my tasks or my waystones throughout the week, so my waypoints. So if I have, next week, just focusing on a co-writing project, I know, okay, I need to get so many chapters done. Oh, plus I'm going to set up my workshops for February. Oh, and I'm going to do, retreat prep and this thing and this thing and this thing. I know what my number 1 is. If everything else falls away, I know that I got the one most important thing done that I can be the most proud of.
And how do you choose that one thing? Because I am very, very good at piling the shit on my plate. And I juggle so much, maybe not quite as much as you, I only have 1 child, but I do juggle stupid amounts, and I put loads on my plate as well. And I'm really bad at saying no. I say yes way too often. And as a result, one of the things, I've always been told, use the Eisenhower matrix, but I'm like, it doesn't work for me, because everything in my brain is important and everything is urgent. So do you have any mechanisms for deciding the priority? I actually, at the minute, funny enough, I actually said to my wife today, I wish I'd taken today off, because I am exhausted. And it's because I have gotten to the point where I've said yes to so many things again, even though I got really good at saying no last year. I've fallen back into old habits.
and I'm firefighting. So the way that I am prioritizing at the moment is like, what is either screaming the loudest or what has an imminent deadline? Like, and that's it. But I always feel that that's really unhealthy for me because of the amount of pressure it puts on me. So like, how do we prioritize so we're not firefighting instead of like, planning an ambush on your to-do list?
Yeah. This is something that everyone has struggled with. I struggle with. Recently, I was feeling very overwhelmed myself because my word of the year is collaboration. I want to be working with other people. I want to be doing lots of things. I want to show up bigger this year. And that means collaboration for me. And one of the things I do is I say, what is most important for me to do? What have I not been doing that has possibly been the missing ingredient? Right. And for me, that was showing it bigger, which is hard to do with a 2-year-old, 1 to 2-year-old. But still, that's why I'm here at 4 a.m. So
I am so honestly impressed. Although I have to say, knowing actually that you have a background in the army does help. I was in the army cadets as a teenager and I joined back as an adult instructor for a while. And I tell you what, there's nothing like instilling discipline in you. I actually went all the way through to become an officer in the army. And I had, I think, 2 rounds of interviews left. And the commitment that they needed from me, because I was going to university, was like 4 years after the 4 years of university. And I was like, I'm so young, I don't know what I want in 8 years' time. Yeah. So I didn't do it, but I was like this close to being in the army, which is so interesting that that's also your background.
Yeah. But I think the biggest tool I use that if I can impart anything on someone to help them, it's just, I keep a notebook. A lot of notebooks, let's be real. Yeah. I keep a lot of notebooks, but I keep one always right next to my keyboard. And when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I will write down all the things that are bothering me or that I think need to be done. And then I only get to highlight 3.
Oh my God.
And let me tell you, Sasha, this
I feel hot and bothered.
Away. I know, but this strips away everything that, guess what? Even though it's screaming in our mind that it's important, it's just what's called an open loop. It is an open loop, and actually writing it down and having it there where you can see it like takes that burden off of your mental capacity to an extent. And then you get to make that choice. What are these 3 things that I have to do now? And you know what I actually prioritize on those 3 things? Things that can be done in 5 minutes or less. Mm-hmm. And that gives me momentum. And then when I cross those off and I get the teeny little dopamine hit from crossing that thing physically off my list, I highlight 3 more things. And then, boom, what can I work on right now? And it's all about putting your head down and moving forward. And I know they say like some people are, something about being, really smart people overthink it and don't do the thing because they're too busy overthinking it, and really stupid people just put their head down, do the thing, and that's why they get stuff done, right? I think I'm like a combination of those 2 because I will overthink it and then I'm just like, I can't wait on this anymore. I just got to get it done. I'm just too, once I decide on something, I'm too bullheaded to quit, And that having that little build up with the 3 easy things that can be done in 5 minutes or less. Sometimes we put off responding to an email. Sometimes we put off calling the bank or whatever it is. I don't do just writing tasks. I put everything from the house, the family, the financials, the family budget. That was the thing I needed to do yesterday. And I ended up Zooming through my list yesterday when it came down to, oh, shoot, there's some things that, I have my plan. I do different types of time blocking, categories of time blocking versus specific tasks. And that gives me more freedom if I'm feeling constrained. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this just quick brain dump and highlight 3 things, because the rest of the things that shows you what's most important when you have to make that choice.
What do you never leave out of your planning? Or like, what is like a key element for you that you feel more of us should be including in our planning?
Daily top priority. and this is something I have like on my weekly layout in the planner, but if you know exactly the one most important thing that needs to be done each day, I know I've already said that, but it's seriously so important to know what is the one thing that you can't finish your day without doing.
And do you decide that by, like, so if we think about the Eisenhower matrix, and some things are like important but not urgent, or like important and urgent, and then, you know, however they go around, how do you pick that one thing? Is it always like the big project that you're working on for work, or like, is it whatever is urgent? Or
yeah, so it depends on the season of things, and sometimes I'm in a season where on Mondays I do social media, on Tuesdays I'll work on blogging, or and Wednesdays is just a writing day. That's pretty consistent. Wednesdays is get in the words, you know, and I'll have either a word count requirement for myself or a time spent requirement. And I love that you said data, because I track all my time doing literally everything so that I can analyze, like, am I spending my time well?
Yeah.
And in alignment with what I say I want out of my life. So yeah, I sometimes I'm in the season where I have my week structured by what I'm doing each day of the week. And sometimes I have a big project like next week, or actually this weekend and into next week. It's all a collaboration project every single day. Now I do have smaller tasks that fit in to that day, but the most important thing I need to do is work on that collaboration project, because it's so important to me. And not just because, it's this thing I want to do, but I've really looked at this project and working with this person and this company as something that if I find fulfilling for my life goals. I find it resonates with the identity and the way that I want to show up in the world. And that's more important than, going grocery shopping or something like that. Okay, I will go grocery shopping, but that's not the most important thing I'm going to do that day. You know what I mean?
How do you cope with, and so for me, I suppose this comes out in a couple of different ways. Part of it is mum guilt, but part of it is like the guilt of the pressure of all of the administration tasks, which is like a huge list. So like I'm pretty good. So one of the things that I've had to instill now is that I write with somebody else and we do sprints together, because if I know that she's turning up to write, I know that I have to prioritize that writing. But literally, I've only done that since the last book, and fuck knows how many books I've written over the years. But so like, this is very new to me. So this experience of kind of the guilt and the pressure of like all the admin burden, and like I don't know, like the house stuff or the life stuff or whatever. Like, how do you prioritize that one thing? Because I have really bad habits where like I'll still get the important thing done because I will just work until my eyes bleed, but that's not healthy, right? It's not the point. How do you do you have any advice for actually giving yourself permission to do the important thing? I think that's the problem. I really struggle to give myself permission. I know it's the most important thing, but I prioritize everybody else. And I think that is a mum thing, maybe, or like a carer thing. If you have a parent or someone that you're looking after, or, I don't. Just speak to me about that, I suppose.
Yeah, I love this, and I hate to be too redundant, but it does come back to prioritization. So there's a great example. Sometimes writing is self-care, and so when I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get the words in because the lack of word count is affecting my perception of self or my self-esteem, then I'm like, okay, I need a sprint buddy. You know what I mean? And I just reach out to my friends and see who's available. And usually, thankfully I've made so many amazing friends, and somebody wants to write. It is a given. You know what I mean? Or I can just get on this big scary TikTok or the Instagram live and go live and sprint. And it's still like pressure because, if your friends do check in on you, you want to be actually writing and not looking up something down the bunny hole. But The prioritization comes into play too, because I know that last night I would rather be preparing for the workshop today and I like to practice, but I need to feel good. So the workshop is related to my writing. It's like a combo of my writing and income priorities. And that number one priority is always self. And I knew that I needed a healthy meal. I knew that I needed brain food. I could just make a sandwich. I'm not supposed to have bread though. So I could make a sandwich and make it real quick, but I stopped. I took the time, and it doesn't actually take that as long as I think it does in my head. And I chopped veggies and I made myself a Greek salad, and I felt so much better for it. And then when I got back to my practice, I felt so much lighter than if I had done, eaten the thing I was not supposed to eat and just gotten right back to work. I had the break. I had the time for my mind to rest while my hands were chopping. Mm-hmm. And that prioritization of self actually like frees up your mental capacity to let go of some of that guilt. But it's a practice. It's a practice to say, no, I'm going to go spend an hour and a half at the gym because for some reason it takes that long to get ready, go to the gym, be at the gym, and then come back. And I do the hydro massage afterward. So I reward myself for going to the gym. But that I have so many ideas. I do my best brainstorming at the gym. I am just full of ideas when I'm exercising. So yeah, it's prioritizing self helps.
It's funny because I go to a boot camp, and it's one of the things that so I had right before Vegas, I stopped because I was so stressed about Vegas. I just couldn't, it was like all I could think about. But and then I got injured when I came back. So I hadn't been for 2 months, and I cannot believe the difference. I've now been going again for about 2-3 weeks, and I can't believe the difference. I sleep better. My brain is clearer. Like I'm more resilient, which is weird because I'm more worn down physically, but I'm actually more mentally resilient, which I think is just the most weird position to be in. But I am like, I try pretty hard to make sure I go at least 3 times a week. And I try to do it during the working week as well. But it's so funny. You're like, oh, I reward myself afterwards with the hydro pool. I punish myself and get in the plunge pool, the ice bath. But actually, like, for how fucking horrific it is, I do actually find I recover quicker because my muscle, the inflammation isn't as bad. So like I do actually recover. So in a weird way, like even though it is the most horrendous experience, like actually I'm back to, being able to batter myself quicker, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard such great things about that. I wish I had access to one, but yes. There's so many things we do to reward ourselves that can seem like punishment too.
Exactly. Okay. Are there any other mistakes that you see people doing when they try and plan? Any things that like maybe trip people up? Any things that you think, actually, if you just did this?
Yeah. Actually, there's one big thing. I've been trying to find a succinct way to say this, and I think I found it. Planning is about ideas, not edicts. It is not something that should be set in stone. And if you don't follow your plan perfectly, you're like, oh, planning doesn't work for me. People, I think, give up on it really quickly without taking the time to experiment and learn. It's more of a self-exploration. It's finding out about yourself and what you can do. Like if my car's not running right, and I take it to the mechanic and they don't fully diagnose it, I don't want to pay the full diagnostic fee, right? But I want it fully diagnosed. I want to know if something's not working in my life, how do I fix it? And I can only do that by experimentation, by troubleshooting, and by experiencing with self-awareness, with mindfulness, what's going right and what's not going right.
Do you know, until you said this exactly like this, I've never realized what I do. So with my goals, I do good, better, best, always, all three. And that's since having coaching and I think I probably do good, better, best for different reasons than other people do it. For me, as a number one competition, number two achiever, I like ticking things off. So that's three things I can tick off, but also it means I can win at good, I can win at better, and I can win at best. However, with planning, I always plan as if I'm going to hit the best. And I would rather have to replan and continue. And I've always been so resistant to like planning in more slippage time than what I'm comfortable with. Like, don't get me wrong, I track so much that I'm pretty accurate. I know it takes me 3 weeks to write a book, for example. And it's very unusual for me not to hit that now because I've done it so many times. So I'm very good at estimating that, but what I'm not so good at estimating is all the shit around it. So like I'm pretty well, and also I'm so focused that once I start drafting, that's it, nothing else happens. Like literally nothing else will happen. And it's the same for editing. Once I'm in that editing week, that's it, nothing else gets done. But I would rather plan that I'm going to hit the best goals all of the time and have to replan and adapt to that than I would plan for good, because I don't feel like planning to achieve good doesn't motivate me. I would rather try to hit best and fail and have to retry again than I would set something more realistic, which is terrible advice for 90% of people listening who should plan for good.
No, I actually don't think it is. I think it just needs a tweak.
Okay.
I think it needs a tweak. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that you know how long it takes you to write a book and how long it takes you to edit that book. That is huge. A lot of people don't know that. Okay. And for those people, I say your number one priority is working on writing the words, finishing that first draft. Oh, once that's done, you go into the next stage of the process, for example. So they don't necessarily need to say, oh, I'm going to have this book done by March if they've never written a book before.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Tracking should be the first.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I would be planning month by month and week by week. Okay. How did I do? What stage am I in? And doing it that way if you're still learning how fast you write. Okay. And then for someone like you, I'd be saying, okay, well, you already know how long it takes you to write a book, how long it takes you to edit a book. You should always shoot for best. The tweak is if you have those other things that you feel like you take a hit when you don't get them done at best, well, what priority do they fall in? How important are they compared to writing and finishing the book? Because that writing and finishing the book and editing and getting it out there trumps a lot of things because it affects all those other priorities. It affects your sense of self. It affects your family because it's income. And it affects, obviously, your writing and that legacy that you're creating, that you're building.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. And like the worst one for me is that I do actually, so whilst I can write a book very quickly, I have to have gaps between. So I don't do that month on, month off. Yep. It's just that once I get to that point, it all comes out very quickly. But the thing that I'm terrible at prioritizing is thinking space and like allowing myself to mood board or allowing myself to like look in coffee table books, because that is where the stories come from. Or allowing myself to binge watch John Wick 1, 2, 3, and 4 back to back, because that's my inspiration for a new series or whatever, you know? And like, I really struggle to prioritize that because it feels indulgent. It feels like it's not work, in air quotes. But yeah, I feel like I'm getting way off track here.
Not at all.
Okay. So I mentioned at the top of this episode that I'm really good at knowing what my end goal is. I know what the finish line is. I know what I'm trying to win. What I'm not so good at is then breaking that down into quarter, month, week. Now, I get a lot done, so maybe I just don't need to do it, but I feel calmer when I do have that planned out. So like, what advice do you have for breaking that stuff down? Because I tell you, I have tried every which way to be able, because I know what I have to do. I just go, oh, there's the goal. I know what I need to do. Boom, off I go like a rocket.
But that leads to me firefighting all the rest of the shit in my life.
Well, can you give me an example of something that you're having trouble breaking down?
Yes. Oh, when is this going out? 1 second, because I may be giving away little secrets now to listeners. So, I mean, for example, let me try and think. Well, okay, so let's say we go to this year and I'm like, okay, I want to do at least 6 books this year. I'm like, great. I know how long it takes me, and I'll plot that on the whiteboard, and I'll plot these are my word counts. This is when I'm editing. This is when I'm launching. So I'm good at that. But then I don't do anything else. I don't plot anything else. So I don't plot the time it's going to take me to do all the launch stuff, the outreach, the writing captions for social media, writing launch emails, advertising, anything else like that. So I'm bad at breaking stuff down like that, I suppose, or say I'm going to deliver a webinar, I will just have to squeeze that into the times in between. I'm thinking about running a Kickstarter next month and breaking that down. I'll know that I've got a list of shit that I need to do. Okay, so let me start talking now. So yeah, for any project, I'll know that there's a list of stuff that needs doing, and I'll be very good at writing that list of stuff, but I'm not very good at then putting that onto the days of the week or, stuff like that, basically.
Yeah. So to me, it sounds like you're a project oriented person.
Yeah, definitely.
And it would definitely benefit you to do things like content batching, so that you don't have to worry about doing social media or doing the administrative tasks when you're in project mode.
Yeah.
So in between books or ahead of a Kickstarter and after a Kickstarter, that's when I'd be doing your administrative tasks. But during the Kickstarter, or when you're preparing to do the Kickstarter and you have that list of tasks, I would try to get everything else off your plate that's reasonable, right? Within reason. And then write your list in the best order you can for a Kickstarter, because you need copy, you need graphics, you need the reward tiers. And usually you need the reward tiers before you start doing all that copywriting. So you're going to need a lot of stuff in order to do that really well. So I think it's not as much about saying which day do you do these tasks, as much as I would just say for you, for planning, on these days I'm project focused. I might have appointments here and there. I might have podcast interviews. I might have, a doctor appointment. I might have family time. But during my core work hours, this is my project focus. This is what I'm doing. And just let yourself not have to worry about the other stuff. The other stuff, the world is not going to end. All the amazing stuff you're doing is not going to fall apart if you don't do those little things. It's amazing what happens when you strip away all the extra and just keep showing up. It's crazy what can happen. But for that, project focus, keep your list, and what order that has to be done in. So don't assign it to a day. I normally set myself a time limit for certain tasks. Otherwise I'll probably take too long on it. For me, that's how I keep my time from being excessive, because, there's a law about how work will fill the time that you allow it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What
is that helpful?
Yeah, no, it is. And funny enough, Wednesdays are my admin and podcast day, and I try really, really hard to have all my meetings and all my podcast stuff on Wednesdays, because I do struggle with fractured focus. If I have extra days with different and it's never perfect, but I try very hard to have big blocks of time, because I much prefer to batch and do all the admin on a day, or all and apart from writing, which I try to not go over, because I can write 10,000 words in a day, but then I am exhausted. So I try to not write more than 6,000 in a day. So doing that, I know I need a certain amount of time to do that. And then
then I can do the rest of the stuff the other days. Do you have any advice for like stumbling blocks when you hit an obstacle, when you fail to meet like a timeline target, or, you know, when you have to redo your plan? Like how can we build resilience there?
Yeah, I love this because I'm all about resilience. Like I said, adapt and overcome. You cannot do anything about what's happened before. All you can do is try to do better going forward, right? So this actually kind of relates to mom a little bit, but one thing that I learned from the pandemic when the kids were home, and I actually stopped writing horror and thrillers, and I have a secret romance pen name because I could not take any more darkness during that time. You know? So I wrote 2.5 romance novels really quick, and then I kind of got stuck. But I was like, this isn't my genre anyway, but I do love it. But anyway, but at first, the kids were coming to see me and to interact with me. And I'm like, no, I had plans to write this at this time. And, you know, and then I would get really mad at first I, you know, snap at them and I'd feel horrible. And then I would be like, you know, is this just, I don't get to do anything while they're home? No. And I had to come to this place where I understood that first priorities, I want them to have a good experience with me writing. I don't want them to associate me writing with something negative or a negative feeling or emotion or memory. But also when I would have those experiences, what I learned was, and from working on creating workbooks for someone, for Heather Stang, she's a grief counselor, and she has this course on grief. And it was amazing because I had to go through the course to build the workbook. And she talks about like breath focused meditation in a way that I had just, and she has this really soothing voice and podcast too. And like you know, you could listen to her all day. But she talked about when you're meditating and you're trying to focus, a lot of people, they get really upset when other things distract them and think, oh, I just can't meditate. And it's like, no, let it in. Acknowledge that thought that was really important to your mind, and then let it go and return to that breath focus. And I thought, well, what if I apply that to my sweet little kids who just want to spend time with mom? Because they don't always want to. It's small moments. I know that priority comes above all the other things. So when they would come to me, I let them in my bubble. And sometimes they go into their bubble, but I let them in that bubble, and then, oh, okay, you know, this is the time I get to stop and focus on them. And then once they're ready to go, I let them go and I return back to this. And yes, I have to spin up my focus again, because we know changing tasks can slow down that pace, and we have to rebuild, but that's okay. I mean, that's life. We're not in a box, and most of us writing from home are not able to just sit, you know, for 8 hours a day like we were in a cubicle or something with no distractions. I mean, that's not real life. So I think the biggest thing in building resilience is whatever distractions come, whatever planning obstacles come, when things hit you. I've worked with so many people who are both either parents or they're caregiving for elderly relatives. And the big thing that keeps coming back is let those things come in, let them go, and then get back to work. You have to work on your bounce back, and you have to let go of the anger and resentment that can come from caring for the people that you love. You know, when you feel like it's interfering with your plans, well, the plan is just a guideline. It's like, for me, I like 2 different analogies. One, it's like if you're going up a mountain in a snowstorm, you have guidelines, right? There are guidelines to keep you on the path. They don't have to be perfect, and you don't always know where you're going. You know where you want to go. And as long as you know that destination, you know, you can keep moving forward. Or if you're taking another good analogy that I love that I first heard from Carrie Green was if you're driving from New York to San Francisco or whatever, and you know where you're going to go. You know the different waypoints, different cities you're going to be going through, but sometimes there's going to be detours. Sometimes there's going to be traffic jams, and sometimes you're going to need to slow down, but you still know what that end destination is. So every time we get to a pit stop, we evaluate and we adjust our plan and know that the time doesn't change the destination.
Yeah, I love that. That's so much more sane and rational than I am.
It's a practice. Like I like, with that military structure, if we have a target, we hit it.
Yeah.
But I had to, I'm one person. I'm not the whole army and everybody working together. And a lot of times we're very, very small businesses as writers. And so we have to allow for, am I going to hurt my mind and my self-esteem by saying that every time I plan, I'm doing something wrong? Or a lot of times I hear the I words, the I statements. And it's taking on this idea that you can run like a machine and always hit every target. Like, vehicles don't do that. We don't have anything in our society that works perfectly, maybe outside of nature. So, and in our nature, we need high times and low times. We need like an operational tempo that allows us high mission times and low times to just manage administrative stuff.
Okay, so I brought your amazing planner when I was in Vegas, or actually I pre-ordered it. But can you tell everyone a little bit about that? Like, how do you make your own planner? Like, how do you go from, I need a planner, nothing is working, to actually being able to like print, make, and deliver your own planner?
Yeah, so this was... I'm going back to Carrie Green here. She's in the UK and she had made a planner in 2017 for 2018. And I really wanted it because I just love all things Carrie Green. And, but it was going to be over $100 after the conversion and the shipping from the UK. And it just was not in my budget at that time. And I was like, okay, I'll save up and, I'll hustle. And then I was halfway through NaNoWriMo that in 2017 when I was like, okay, I got the money, I'm going to go buy it. And they were all sold out. And I was like, you know what? I keep going through planners. I keep picking up planners, starting them, not using them all the way. I got the Passion planner, the Panda planner, and they were like too pretty to use. It was something where, And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to make my own. I know that I need a system to get organized, to be adaptable, to understand what's going on when. And whatever I've been doing in the past isn't working. And Carrie Green's planner is not an option anymore. I'm just going to make my own. And so I started doing a concept in Pages. And I was, 300 pages in when I realized, Apple Pages.
What?
And I was 300 pages in before I realized, oh, wait, this is actually formatting this. So and I finished that first prototype in 2 weeks. I did nothing but work on that. I barely ate. I did as much as I could with my family without being like, I was on fire. And it was one of those moments, like I said, I had to just be that bullheaded person, turn off my brain and overthinking and just do the thing.
Oh God, I love it. I literally love it. Like I have thought about doing my own planner multiple times. But I actually think that part of the way that I plan is to like burn through a planner for a few weeks and then just bin it and start a new one. And like, I think I have never, ever completed a planner ever. If that's not true, actually, that isn't true. The Clever Fox 13-week planner, I have completed 4 times. And I think it's because it's such a short period of time. And like you said, I'm such a project-based person that I almost need project-based or like time periods that are shorter than a year. Because I just like, there's too much change for me to stick with a planner for a whole year. I feel different, or like as the projects move, I don't feel like I can be in that planner anymore. It's such a weird thing to say, but yeah, like
that's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
That's why I created it quarterly too. For some people, just they a 90-day period is fantastic for making massive progress and getting hyper focus on a project or a couple of projects.
Yeah, Becca Syme has she uses these ones that are like monthly ones, and I was like, oh my god, I'd fucking love that. But I don't think you can get them in the UK cheaply, which is why I've always been like, oh, like I wish I could, blah blah blah, and then I've never done it, and I've just constantly like supported my stationery habit by just buying more and more planners. But yeah, I loved what you were saying about they're too good, they're too perfect, they're too pretty. Between Sarah Cannon and Ines Johnson, like they have both given me permission to just like fucking stick stickers and shit everywhere and like just like not be so precious over it. And like now my planners are like coffee stained and crumbs in them and like but actually there's something really sensory about that, because I'm like, yeah, look at the hard work I've done,
mine, you can't hardly see it anymore, but my 2023 has coffee stains and it's like it's so fluffy now from all the stickers, and at the end I used like scrapbook like things.
I love it. But there's something really sensory about paper that's like been used and worn and it's all crinkly. Like, I'm just...
I know, it is good. And I did see something that I thought I wanted to share as much as possible. You know, life is short. You have no idea how short it is, right? You know, write in the pretty notebook. Write and get messy in your pretty planner. Use the pretty pens. Stop
use the pretty stickers.
Them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, that's what it's been. Like I have a box like this. Okay. So for listeners, I would say my box is probably the size of like a football and a half of just stickers that I've brought over the years. And like, I wouldn't use them. I would buy them and hoard them and, you know, protect them. And then I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Just buy another sticker if you need another sticker. Like use the fucking pretty sticker. So now I do. Now I'm like almost the other way, and I'll like on purpose force myself to just use the nice sticker and just put it somewhere. But yeah, like there's so much permission giving, I think. But okay, well, this is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Awesome. So I had plenty of time to think about this. It was so hard to pick a time because I feel like I go against the grain quite a bit.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I have a really bad habit. Or just that's my personality. Too bullheaded maybe. But I think the hardest time I went and did the rebellious thing was that after I got my Bachelor's of Arts in English with a concentration in writing, I did not go for the MFA. And that was a huge decision. I went for the Master's in History.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it was knowing that I was already part of the indie community and knowing how that indie community is perceived in academic circles. I know a lot of amazing people with MFAs and who are still self-publishing, but I knew that I'd have a hard time keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah.
And that I would say something and I'd probably piss off one of my professors, right? But it was partly that, and understanding that I would be protecting my mental health and probably spending my money better if I followed what I love, which I love history. And mine is specifically ancient and classical history. So, and that I really, really want to be a fantasy author. I've been practicing with horror and thrillers and building my craft and skills so that I can be good, hopefully, the dream, right? But I thought, man, I have so many more ideas about historical figures and situations that I can basically insert into my writing for fantasy. And just, it's amazing what these cute little stories, not cute, not usually tragic, these stories that are trapped in history that nobody knows about. Like Prince Edward or Prince Eugene of Hungary during the Ottomans trying to invade. I mean, oh my God.
Have you started writing the fantasy?
Yes.
Okay,
I have 3 short stories out. I have 2 major novels in the works. I'm in the brainstorming and building my structure phase, my beat sheets. So.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Otherwise, I was going to challenge you to rebel against those. Like, I have to be good expectations and just fucking do it. Just write it because you have permission. Oh, I love that so much. Would you like to tell everyone where they can find out more about you, your books, and anything else you'd like to add?
Awesome. Thank you. AudreyHughey.com, and anywhere on social media. I'm Audrey is Writing if you like my fun fiction stuff, which is a lot of horror and thrillers, but we're going to be shifting. I do have a very exciting co-writing project this year, and with a really amazing author who's already in the space, but it's post-apoc.
Oh.
So I just go all over the genres. I think that's another way I'm a rebel. But I am, if you want to see more planning stuff and planning tips, it's at The Right Services. I thought it was so clever, like WRITE, The Right Services. But I'll be posting a lot of planning stuff and tips and motivation and all the feel good, positive stuff to lift people up.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And of course, a big thank you to all of the show's listeners and all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You were listening to Audrey Hughey, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Next week, I'm talking to Clayton Noblett from Written Word Media, all about publishing in the next year, 2 years. We're looking at publishing predictions, publishing trends, and their author survey from 2023. So join me for a bit of industry discussions, shall we say, next week.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.